Great. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about that short break. We are now have Amron with us, who is going to review the next two compacts, 77 and 86. I'm going to turn it over to you, Amron.
Great. For the record, Amron Abergilly, Legislative Counsel. The compact bills were all on for third reading this morning on the Senate floor, and they all passed third reading.
Okay, so they'll be on our calendar tomorrow, which means they could be called up early just for those, or it would be Friday. But you'll have to stand up and give what our straw vote is.
Sure.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Amron.
You're welcome. So I will start with H77 and screen share this proposal of amendment from the Senate, which is pretty brief. You may recall that the as passed by House version of H77, which is an act relating to Vermont's adoption of the Physical Therapy Licensure Compact, has in Section 2 language that authorizes the Office of Professional Regulation to conduct background checks on certain professions, and H77 added physical therapists. When this bill was over on the Senate side, we realized that it did not also include and physical therapist assistants, which are also covered by the compact and which are also required by the compact to have background checks. So this proposal of amendment would amend Section 2 of the bill in Title 3, Section 1, 2, 3, Subdivision J1 and Subdivision E to add the words and physical therapists following physical therapists, so that OPR is authorized for both of those professions to conduct those background checks required by the compact.
Great. All right.
Since it'll be mine to report, Amron, if I looked on the website now, under the unofficial version from the Senate, would it have that in there, do you think?
No, the proposal of amendment will look just like this.
Okay, it wouldn't be inserted in the bill itself in the version of it.
No, it wouldn't, but I can show you exactly where it will go.
I'm pretty sure I can find it. I mean, you don't have to do too much. Oh. I can look. If I have a problem,
Okay.
I'd just like to have it in front of me when I address the problem.
Yeah, understood.
All right. Any other questions? Straw vote. All those in favor of accepting the amendment? Okay, so now we're 10-1. No, 10-0-1. All right, if you want to remember that, 10-0-1.
10-0-1.
I'm going to write that down so I remember it too. And yours was 10-0-2, right? 9-0-2. Gosh, you'd think I failed math class, but I really didn't.
Too late for me to vote on that?
Yes. Which is fine. Let's go to the next one.
All right. The next amendment or proposal of amendment for you is on H86, which is the compact for audiologists and speech language pathologists, although this language is related to the issue of people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but is not actually amending anything related to the compact itself. So this amendment to H86 would add a new Section 7 to the bill, not to the compact, and it amends subchapter 5 within Title 1. And this is a subchapter that deals with interpreters for individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf blind, who are are involved in some sort of state proceeding. So, and as further background, this language, or close to this language, was included in the House version of the budget bill, but it was removed by the Senate from the budget as it was, one, a bit lengthy, and also is policy and doesn't have any appropriation attached to it. So Senate Appropriations inserted this onto a somewhat related bill, which is the Audiology and Speech Language Pathology Compact bill. So much of the revisions that you're going to see in this are updating the terms deaf or hard of hearing to deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind. And so you'll see as I scroll through that there are a number of changes there. So for example, in subdivision 1, we have that terminology change, and then some of those changes that you often see us make to use more non-gendered language, changing he or she to the person. So first is the definition section in section 331 of Title I. So this is defining a person who is deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind, and defining a proceeding, which means any judicial proceeding, contested case, or other hearing before an administrative agency not included under 3 VSA Chapter 25. Once again, in subdivision 3, adding in the new or the corrected terms deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind, and then removing references to the Vermont Commission of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And you'll see more revisions later on, also removing references to the Vermont Commission of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. One of the changes from the House budget version of this language is to insert new language concerning or addressing communication access real-time translation services, which are services for people who are hard of hearing, as opposed to services for people who are deaf or deafblind. So under section 332, any person who is deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind, who is a party or witness in any proceeding shall be entitled to be provided with a qualified interpreter or CART services for the duration of the person's participation in the proceeding. And so you'll see there are more changes on this page, just changing that term deaf or hard of hearing to the new terms deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind, and then adding in or CART services following those instances when the person is would be entitled to a qualified interpreter. And once again, on page 3 in section 333, updating those terms for deaf or hard of hearing. And then changes in section 336 is talking about the state's contracting for those interpretation and CART services. So previously, or in current law, the language says that the Vermont Commission of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing shall by rule establish factors to be considered by the presiding officer under section 333 of this title before appointing an interpreter who is not a qualified interpreter. And such factors shall encourage the widest availability of interpreters in Vermont, while at the same time ensuring that the interpreter is able to, and then there's a list on page 4. But so replacing that language, the new language would say the state of Vermont shall maintain contracts to operate CART services and a statewide sign language interpreter referral service to provide services to a person who has a right to an interpreter or CART services under section 332 of this subchapter. And then it goes on to say that the contract shall require that excuse me, an interpreter providing services through the sign language interpreter referral service. And then it starts listing what the interpreter must do, which is be able to communicate readily with the person, be able to interpret accurately statements or communications by that person, be able to interpret the proceedings to the person, maintain confidentiality, be impartial, not exert influence over the person, and not accepting assignments that the interpreter does not feel competent to handle. And then subsections B and C are being repealed. This is more on the Vermont Commission of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And then on page 5 in subsection D, there's repeal of language saying the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living shall maintain a list of qualified interpreters in Vermont, and where such information is available in surrounding states. And instead, the language says the state of Vermont shall maintain access to qualified interpreters in Vermont and CART services for all state agencies and courts through the statewide contracts maintained by the state pursuant to subsection A of this section. And then the remaining changes to sections 337 and 338 are to update those terms deaf or hard of hearing to deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind. And I believe that is also true for section 339 on page 6. Yes. So
Okay.
I didn't go through all of the language word for word, and I'm happy to go into greater detail if that would be helpful for the committee.
I'm gonna look to Bobby, because I think this was yours, right?
Yep. And I guess my first question is, this is just a single instance of amendment, but it's a lot of revisions to existing law.
Yes, it's one instance of amendment proposing to add a new section 7.
Okay.
There's a lot in it, but it's all going to be within a new section 7 of the bill.
Okay. Because this isn't really related to the compact, it's just related to people who are hard of hearing.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Correct.
I think I understand so far.
Anyone else have questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
Can I ask my dumb question?
Then no question is done.
Yeah, this is dumb. Is deafblind hyphenated or do we not use hyphens in statute?
It is,
It's both.
It's both.
I just looked it up.
It's both. You look, so not a dumb question. Apparently, everybody else has it.
No,
I got a dumb question.
there's no dumb questions. Stop.
Okay. How come
There
we,
are different, I was able to find different uses, but this was the request was that it be phrased as deafblind with no hyphen.
If it's used as an adjective, it's one word.
Okay, but with the B capitalized under blind?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go with it.
Legislative version.
we use hard of hearing instead of hearing impaired? I wouldn't want to change it now, but I'm just saying.
Do you have any comment on that? Did you hear that, Amron?
I couldn't hear that question.
We used hard of hearing and it just doesn't sound right, but why didn't we use hearing impaired? Sorry.
I don't know.
Okay. I wouldn't want to change it now.
Do you want
Virginia read through, and I know that my clients, the speech therapists were saying, you know, that's the way it's
to?
written.
That's the way it should be written.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. All right, so Bobby, I'm going to say connect with Virginia or Amron if you have any questions on how to report it on the floor. So are we good for a straw vote? Everyone in favor of accepting the amendment? All right, so now we're back to 902.
I know too.
People are testing my math skills. Great, and then Amron, the psych pack wasn't yours, but I believe there was no amendment to that, right? I'm gonna look to you or Claire.
That
282.
one's not mine, but.
I would think if it would have been, Katie would have said that when she was here.
It's Jen's.
It's Jen's.
Nothing on calendar.
Okay.
Out yet, it's like.
Okay, I'll check in with Jen real quick, but I do believe that now means we are concurring with 3. 1 has already been concurred, so all 4 compacts will, once it passes through the House, will go to the governor's desk. So great job, everyone. And then I think that takes care of everything that we had outstanding. So thank you, Amron. Again, thank you for everything for this year. We appreciate all your support, and we can go